Right, that's us. Well, hello again. Welcome to Declutter Chat Show, where we have got one that I am really excited to talk show, chat show. I keep getting it wrong every week, but it's the same thing. We are all talking, and tonight we are talking about hormones mainly with three very, very well educated, experienced girls in all things that's hormonal, from the flow to the menopause, from the products to the help to everything. We have an array of wonderful ladies tonight, and I'm going to start introducing just briefly, and then I'll get the girls to tell you a bit about themselves and what exactly they do and what they bring forward for hormones, and then we'll get into some open-end question for the girls. But first we have Kerry, TCS Eco, which I've been saying in my head because every time I said it I kept doing DC to DTC, but we've got TCS Eco, which is Kerry will tell you more about it in a second. We've also got the beautiful Livy, who comes from Bloody Amazing, a bit self-explanatory, but she'll give you a wee bit more brief insight to what they do and what their support network is. And we also have Alison Craig, who is also the next step from the hormones onto the menopause author, and she will go in and tell us in a second a bit about herself. And just because the order that we're in, Kerry, would you just like to tell the audience a bit about yourself, how you came to do your company and what your company actually is?
Hi, my name's Kerry Ann and I run TCS Eco. It stands for the Cloth Stop, and to put it simply, we use cloth to stop leaks, period. I initially started the business because I had waste scraps from some nappies that I was making for my son. So I moved on from that to making cloth sanitary pads because they kind of fitted in the spaces that were waste, and I didn't like to throw it in the bin. From using them, I then realised that the impact of the chemicals within the disposables was having a big impact on my actual body and cycle. So it's kind of a secondary thing to what my initial plan was, which was to eliminate waste that was unnecessary. So that's the basis of the business, is supplying reusable products instead of single use.
Fantastic, Kerry. Thanks very much. And Livy, would you just like to give us a brief insight to Bloody Amazing, please, darling?
Yeah, so I'm Livy, and I started Bloody Amazing, which is basically a first period to menopause education platform. So we strive to provide free education, but also go out to schools and workplaces to talk about periods and the menopause, and also do the hormones as well. I started it because of my own problems with hormones and period problems. So I've got endometriosis, but because I didn't receive any education in school, I thought endometriosis was a normal period, and I thought that's what happened to everybody. And it wasn't until I was about 17 where I realised that other people had it much easier and they could play tennis in their nice always white shorts, and I couldn't do that, and I was devastated. So I wanted to educate other people just about everything that can go wrong, really, because 1 in 10 people can have a period problem in the UK now, so it affects a lot of people.
Amazing, Livy. And we're going to get right into that because I'm dead interested. And in the bottom corner, we have Alison Craig, who is a menopause writer and author. And can you tell us a bit about what you do as well, please?
Yeah, so like Livy, that my business really started from my own experience of menopause. It was pretty appalling, and once I kind of came through the other side of it, I just really thought I didn't want anybody else to go through what I went through. So then the business was kind of born in my mind, and I got myself educated and qualified, and I do workplace training. I do 6-week courses, 6 weeks menopause revive courses, which I've done quite a few of now, and I've got more coming up in January. And that is a kind of education program, but also exercise based on strength training. I do lots of talks. I do talks just about awareness, about menopause awareness, just trying to get information out there to women who just don't have the information. So I think that is so important. So I do talks. I'm also a writer, and really keen to really put my words out there to educate and to improve. There's a lot for women in menopause. So yeah, I'm sort of working on a book at the moment that's all in bits and pieces everywhere. Based on Yeah, based on my own story, but also bringing in the perspectives of the women that I work with, because I talk to women all the time about menopause. And, you know, there are common themes amongst what they say to me, but there's also things that surprise me all the time. You know, women have such different stories and different experiences. So, you know, I'm growing and developing myself all the time. So that's what I do.
Amazing.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Alison. Very interesting. I'm just going to pick on you. I'll start with you, Livy, just because you had said about endometriosis. I didn't even know what endometriosis was until a friend has got the same, and I didn't even know it was hormone or period related, and that just shows you how much. So for your own experience and your own stuff, could you tell us a wee bit about what endometriosis and what makes it different from the period cycle?
Yeah, so I can tell you my own experience because obviously everyone's
Yeah.
different, but I have a lot of friends who've also got endometriosis as well. So endometriosis comes in 4 stages. Stage 4 is obviously the worst it is, but it's not directly correlated to pain levels. So you can have stage 1 or stage 2 endometriosis where it will just be localized to like your womb and nearby your womb, but your pain might be more excruciating than someone who's got stage 4. It's difficult to quantify. So basically endometriosis is when the tissue that's supposed to be in your reproductive system in your womb grows outside. There's research to suggest that it's been found in the lungs, it's been found in the brain, so it can basically just hangs about anywhere it fancies, and it flares up like a period. So when everything flares up in your period, your endometriosis tissue, wherever it is, that can flare up as well. It can cause pain anywhere in the body. There's also different symptoms like bowel symptoms. It obviously has an impact on people's mood because of fatigue, because of feeling hopeless about themselves. Also, like, we don't know what causes endometriosis, which is a huge thing as well. Some people think it's an estrogen dominance, but it's not fully proven yet. But it's all to do with hormones, like every period problem is. It
I
can
know.
be really debilitating. I'm very lucky. Like, I've only got stage 2 endometriosis. It's in my bladder, my bowel, and my reproductive system. I've had 2 surgeries for it. There's also no cure for endometriosis, which is really important to say. So the only way you can get rid of it temporarily is to get a laparoscopy. And that's when they either excise or ablate endometriosis tissue out of your system, but it mostly always grows back.
Oh, that's that. Do you know, I didn't even, that just shows, because we all get stuck in our own bubble. So, and that's how when you mentioned and touched on that, because everybody just thinks hormones, bad mood, bleed, might be a wee bit tearful, might fall out with somebody, but actually the magnitude of all of the process, which is amazing that you guys have actually thought about getting a platform. I mean, you is with Alison and Livy, and Kerry, actually, I didn't even know what going to touch on and ask you next. So where did you discover, if you can remember, if you've got to discover about the chemicals, how do they affect your period at all? Can you tell us anything about that?
Yes, so basically, you'll see always advertised that Always Ultra and all the various other disposables, they'll say they've got a stay dry layer in it. So the stay dry layer is a chemical barrier that basically actively pulls moisture from a wet area to a dry area, and it makes it dry. So what happens is that your womb and your vagina and everything like that start to lose your mucous membrane, which is your protective barrier that stops any fungal attacks and bacteria. And when that sheds, because your body's shedding it because of this stay dry layer, so your body sheds it, and your brain thinks, oh, hang on a second, there's something going on there. So it rapidly remakes it, and then it sheds it again. Now, once that happens, it activates your immune. I'm an immunologist to trade, so it activates your immune response. And your immune response, the best way to describe it is, have you had food poisoning? So it either removes it from one way or the other. Well, imagine food poisoning in your vagina. And that's what all the cramping and everything is. So your body starts to cramp to get rid of this poison, toxin, or bacterial infection. But the reality is there isn't one there. So you've this stay dry membrane that everybody gets told is an absolutely amazing thing. That is actually causing this. And your actual period is only between 60, and if you've got a heavy, not for anybody with adverse medical conditions, but your average period is 60 mils. So that 60 mils over like 10 tampons or anything like that, it isn't a huge amount. But with this stay dry layer, you're actually pulling out all your mucous membranes that are meant to be there, all your protection, and then because you're shedding, you're pushing out your plasma and all your various other things, and you're making yourself ill because your body's trying to get rid of something that's not there. So the most anecdotal evidence is that, for example, me, I don't have a proper hormone cycle. In fact, I don't release eggs. So because I don't release eggs, when I have a menstrual cycle, I just drop everything. Everything just goes within 24 hours, and it is a bloodbath. But when I stopped using disposable items and started using cloth, that stopped. And I went from having like a day and a half, and then 2 horrible days, and then 5 or 6 days at either end of it that were just hanging about and not going anywhere, to having a 4-day period.
That's amazing.
And it dropped down to, instead of using like super tampons and a night always ultra or a night postpartum long type ones, from using all of them to using 9-inch always green all the time. And it was pure, not always, sorry, when I moved on, the equivalent of a 9-inch always in a disposable, and I used 12 to 16 pads instead of 2 packets of super tampons and a packet of always ultra, basically. And
amazing. I'm definitely getting some of your products now, because I'm still got the hang with it. I've not got over for it, but yes, it's just been madness. But you know, it does prove, and the girls have all got massive. The reason I got the 3 girls on was because I initially obviously spoke to Kerry, Livy, and we got Alison on. It's to make you aware that it's not just the standard things, you know. It's not just like we have crying and we're upset and it's just hormonal. There's so many additives, and the reason for getting the girls on as well is there is help. There's alternatives. There's alternatives for like using the sanctuary. Livy's group, Bloody Amazing, is on Facebook and our platforms. We will put the handles up in the comments and stuff, and it's got that kind of support there as well. And Alison, and I didn't know, obviously I do know about Kerry, but that's because we're from the same area. We're similar aged, and I have spoke to Kerry back and forward. Is the only reason I'm aware of what Kerry does. I had no idea whatsoever about Livy until someone that contacted that watched another show, and that really is this happening. I had no idea of Alison either, even though you're in the same local area that I came from. I didn't know these things, and it's like, because I suffer so much, I want everybody to know about these. I want them to know alternatives for yourself, Kerry. And Livy's doing talks now. You're doing talks and raising awareness, Livy, and I've not heard about you. And I'm not saying that I need to know everything. It's like, why does Dee Maxwell not know? That's not what I mean. It's like, it needs to get more awareness of who you are and who you can support. Because I know in my monthly cycle, and I suffer from PMDD, which I've spoke about, and you girls have said you maybe not direct sufferers of it, but you do know about it. And I've actually felt like doing real damage to myself at some months. I've lost relationships, I've lost jobs, I've lost friendships, all because of these 4 days, what they call, my friends will call, is that Michael in? They'll call Michael Myers, is that Michael in? And as funny as it is, I'm exhausted by the time I get to the stage of crying. And when I bleed, it's like a relief, but then it's a sense of dread for 2.5 months, I wish, 2.5 weeks, to the next cycle begins again, where I'm getting, even you would have noticed, my voice notice it's clip. I've got, and I had to say, I need to let these girls know because they'll understand. I've got PMDD today, and you can even hear the change in my voice. It's really not nice. So, Livy, what response have you got from schools? And then I'll take a question to yourself, Alison.
I think for me, it's still so staggering how much 11 to 14-year-olds in particular don't know about their bodies, about hormones in particular, about period products, and about reusables as well as like an option. So we've had bonkers questions, and I don't say this to make fun of any kid, I would never do that, I'm a teacher, but asking me what hole a tampon goes in, for example. Does it go in your vagina, or does it go in the hole that you pee from? I'm trying to think, I can't think about any other ones offhand.
I was trying not to laugh because this is serious, but I can imagine.
But questions like that, and you're just like, you're thinking, why is a 14-year-old asking me this? Where are their parents? Where is the education they should have been getting? And the more conversations I had with people my age, so I never got any period education apart from you will get a period that will be a bit sad for about 4 days and then you'll move on and it'll all be all right again. But I didn't get anything beyond that. And the more people I spoke to, they said their experience was the same. There wasn't anything given to people. So I really wanted to change that. So we go into schools and we talk about hormones in particular. So we don't just talk about the bleed, although that is a big bit of it. We talk about all 4 parts of the cycle, which I can talk more about if you want later. I don't want to dominate the conversation. How your hormones change like throughout those, talking about estrogen, which Maisie Hill calls the Beyonce of hormones, and progesterone, which I like to think of the Billie Eilish of hormones, and really making those quantifiable and understandable for people that are teenagers and they're not interested. I also talk to teenagers about contraception, because contraception is given for to prevent pregnancy, but it can also help with period problems. It doesn't obviously help with a hormone imbalance, but it can mask many symptoms. So we like to provide children and young people with the language to go to their GPs, talk about their experience, talk about if they think they've got a period problem, what their symptoms are and how they know, and also what they're wanting from an appointment, what contraception do they think they need, and also giving them the language if their contraception's not working, which we know happens all the time. Do they have the confidence to go back to their GP and say, listen, this is not working for me, I need something else? So we're just trying to create a generation really of body literate young people who can advocate for themselves, who know what their vagina is and don't get confused and call it something else. That's my dream really. That's what I want to see.
Amazing, Livy. Thank you so much. Now, Alison, we are talking all hormones, and the big thing, and they've classified me as perimenopausal. On top of the PMDDD, I've now got the wonderful, and I thought I would get a nice wee, I've been through hell and back my period since I was 11-year-old. So my sister used to actually sit out in the hall and cry that she was in that much pain. Me and my sister have had horrific periods. Now I've got this perimenopausal, dropping things, going hot and then cold and crying for nothing. And my anxiety's heightened, which nobody told me would happen. So can you tell me about a bit of awareness of what your own experience, what made you want to delve a wee bit deeper into the menopause and explain your experience of that?
Okay. So, my menopause, the average age of menopause in the UK and America and kind of most Western countries is 51. And I was exactly 51 when it happened to me. But I was busy at the time. My dad was ill. I wasn't really thinking about myself. I just thought I didn't feel well. Couldn't really put a finger on it, but I just didn't feel like myself anymore at all. And this went on for quite a few months. And I was getting like constant PMS, like the whole month. I was just like really sore and just felt really miserable, irritable. Just felt like premenstrual the whole month. And my periods were like, sometimes it'd be 2 weeks, sometimes it'd be 6 weeks. It was just like all over the place. But I didn't really think about it. I was too busy. And then one day I was at work in a meeting, and I'd been feeling really, really bad that week. And I just suddenly started crying, and I just could not stop crying. And the girl I was meeting was just like, oh my God, what's wrong? And I couldn't even say what was wrong. So I went home. I just went to bed, and I honestly thought, oh my God, there's something really bad happening here. I'm really, really poorly, So I got up the next day, dragged myself out of bed, got myself down to the doctor, and the doctor asked me a few questions and diagnosed depression and gave me antidepressants. And I thought, right, okay, that was completely like from left field. I had no idea. But honestly, by that point, I would have taken anything. So went home, took the antidepressants, and I did feel a little bit better. The anxiety certainly went down, and I did feel a little bit more kind of able to concentrate and didn't keep forgetting everything. And just, I felt a little bit more like myself, but I still didn't really know what was wrong. There was still things that just didn't feel right. So I was off work for quite a long time. I couldn't work. And one day I was just sitting, I couldn't even read a book, and I read all the time. I couldn't read a book because I couldn't get from the beginning of the sentence to the end and know what had happened, because it was just like, and I just couldn't comprehend. So I was looking at magazines just to be looking at something. I was just looking at adverts and looking at pictures and stuff. And one day I was sitting just looking through a magazine, and there was this article on menopause. And I was just scanning through it. And then suddenly I was like, oh my God, that is what's happened. That's what's happening to me. And nobody had ever mentioned it. The doctor never mentioned it. And I was just like, yeah, I've got that. It was just like everything explained. And that was just the beginning of a whole revolution in my life. I just thought, you know, I can't let somebody else go through what I've been through, because it was just awful.
Yeah, and I think the main thing as well is we go for the things that don't help. We go for the chocolate. We go for the fizzy juice. They go for all those things that really counteract it. Like yourself, what's saying, just to touch on, exercise is a big one that can really, really make you get your endorphins going and make you feel a lot better. And you do a kind of exercise nutrition kind of theme things as well, don't you?
I do. So what happened in my menopause was that my doctor, having prescribed antidepressants, told me to go out and exercise. And I was a runner at that point. I was running about 40, 50 miles a week. So I thought, right, I'll go and exercise. And actually that kind of exercise is the worst thing for menopause. And it just made me feel absolutely shattered, absolutely wiped. So, you know, and then when I was doing the research about menopause, when I finally knew what was going on, it's about, you have to do strength training. You know, long cardio it's just not helpful in menopause. So it's about building up strength, building up muscle. It's muscle mass that's really important. So the work I do now is getting older women to lift heavy weights. And that's what I do. Yeah.
I've always done heavy weights, but I've always probably, me and Kerry can pro thing when we were younger. Not, I mean, our swagger was more important than our lipstick back in the day, you know. So
Yes.
definitely, you know what I mean? We swaggered bigger, our punch should they be, you know, on point. Shot put, I had to throw that shot put further than anybody else. But I've got to the point, we've got a brief insight into all the ladies, and there's stacks of knowledge they've all got. The show is nowhere near done. But if you have any questions, either to all the panel or to one of the girls in, please just pop it in the comments while we talk. And as we talk, I will bring it up. So, Kerry, I'm going to ask you, what advice have you got from me? Again, as I've said at the beginning, I didn't want the girls, they're all talking from their own experience, people they know. None of us are doctors. We are just women that have researched the stuff that we're going through and to try and alleviate it, and branched out and spoke to other people. A bit like Livy and Alison, and we've all done our own, and Livy more so, and Alison obviously getting right into the stuff. Kerry for her own products, and myself just into the stuff I did. But Kerry, what kind of advice would you give to anybody that's maybe going through the hormones? Like Donna said, she got a hysterectomy, but dead young. And Shaza has said, I'm going through a terrible time. I have been bleeding heavy non-stop for 2 months. I can't even leave the house. You know, so there's these kind of things. What kind of things would you suggest that how you cope with these feelings, and what's the kind of alternative therapies, really, like we were speaking about with Livy and Alison?
Well, firstly, if she's still heavy bleeding, has she actually been to the doctor to make sure that that there isn't something else happening? Because if you're still bleeding quite heavily after 2 months, there could be an additional issues happen there. 2 months is, with heavy bleeding, quite a long time, because like after you've had a baby and things like that, it should, you know, it should be high for a while, then drop off as you start to get better. So I would advise actually maybe contacting your doctor if you haven't, and just running through it. Get yourself a nice ice pack sometimes, because sometimes that'll make you feel, or even a hot pack, something like that to help you with the stress. Paracetamols, all the various other things that I would highly recommend. If you're still bleeding after 2 months, go to the doctors and make sure that there isn't something else happening there, because that's quite a long time to continue bleeding, because that's going to have an adverse effect on your mental health, not being able to leave the house and just feeling like very vulnerable, to be honest, and that's not going to help you.
Amazing, Kerry. So, Livy, I'm going to come to you, darling, if you don't mind. And just not on just that question, just what kind of alternative things can people do if they don't have the need to seek medical advice? Like, I do think that lady, the same as Kerry, does need to seek medical advice, but people that maybe, what kind of alternative things would your group have explored that was maybe help people?
I just want to say really quickly, like, I would agree with Kerry about that thing about going to the doctors, but also that sounds like an urgent gynecology referral. That doesn't just sound like a GP visit. And I would also say that maybe look into getting an iron supplement if you're not doing that already, because if you've been bleeding heavily for 2 months, you're probably anemic by this point. So that's what I want to say on that. But just alternative things, I think things that have been really life-changing for me is tracking my period. My period is like clockwork. It comes every 28 days. If it's late or if it's early, there's something wrong. I'm stressed or there's something going on in my body and I'm probably going to get sick or get a cold or something. That's something that's really helped me. It's so easy. You can do it in a journal, like the old-fashioned way, or there's so many different apps that you can put in all sorts of symptoms, and it can even be helpful for, like, if you're approaching perimenopause as well and you want to start tracking your symptoms, if you have plans to go and speak to a GP and seek help or seek HRT or something. But also just looking at things to balance your hormones generally, like make sure you're getting enough sleep. If you can't sleep, are you deficient in something like magnesium? Can you get that for yourself? Are you getting enough fibre in your diet? Can you eat some cruciferous vegetables like broccoli, cauliflower? We know that those mitigate the impact of estrogen, and a lot of us are estrogen dominant these days, so that can be really helpful. Exercise, like Alison's saying, so a good combination of strength training, because we know our bone density goes down as we get older especially, but also exercise is amazing for mental health and stress and releasing those happy hormones. So that's kind of all I can think of. And maybe just one wee thing as well, linked to what Kerry was saying about how products can have an impact on our hormones, like scented candles, scented body washes, all of that stuff. They smell lovely, but they shouldn't be anywhere near your vagina. Not that you're putting candles up your vagina unless you have an alternative lifestyle and that is your business. But all these things like vaginal deodorants, they're lovely, they're marketed beautifully, but they upset and aggravate your hormones and they can make pre-existing conditions worse. So if you're burning candles a lot, I would look into whether they come from natural scents and stuff like that, and just be really mindful about what you're putting in your body.
Yeah, it's self-cleaning. That's one of the things. Sorry.
Yeah, it's self-cleaning, but Livy, I've just envisioned with a Yankee candle on. I hope it leaves me soon. I hope it leaves me soon. Not even just your...
I didn't want to assume, people might be.
Yeah, you know what? In the world that we're in now, Livy, you're absolutely right to cover that base. You did, but I just thought, I just had that vision, and it just won't leave me for a moment. And I was going, she's getting serious now. Please do not smirk, because now she's talking about something serious and you're still at the Yankee Candle. But yeah, you're absolutely right. I know people talk about all these different products. My mum was old school and it was like, don't wash your face with stuff, don't do facials, don't do this, blah, blah, blah. But also don't wash down there, don't douche or whatever you want to call it, do any of that stuff, because it just puts the pH balance out of right. You're absolutely one of the things that I did know. I'm not even just blowing smoke up you. Have actually learnt me a lot, all of you tonight. So I'm really glad that you have came on. Alison, I want to just, because the girls obviously in the period, and I know that Livy, you do the menopause and all that stuff as well, but you are probably interesting to speak to each other if you have not already. But Alison, what would you say? I've got perimenopausal PMDD. Somebody's asking, wait a minute, Alison, maybe you could answer this before I ask you this question. So what about bath salts? So your Epsom salts and all that kind of stuff, would any of you know if that has been researched? Does that have any effect on periods?
I can say something if you want. Epsom salts on their own are fine, but it's when you add scented things. So there's you can get them out of B&M and stuff. There's all these lovely scented ones like Rose Garden or Christmas scent. Stay away from those. Your natural Epsom salts are fine, generally.
Fantastic, Livy. So Alison, just basically, I didn't know, what kind of signs, what kind of alternative stuff you were talking about earlier, what kind of nutrition do you add to menopause, what kind of stuff, and obviously you've educated me there on strength training. I'd have thought any exercise would have hindered, but what sort of stuff would you suggest can I alleviate nutritionally? I know we spoke about exercise, but what kind of stuff have you learned about nutrition that kind of helps towards alleviating menopause symptoms?
Just before I say that, I just want to add to what Libby said there about Epsom salts. So Epsom salts are very high in magnesium, and a big effect of menopause is insomnia. Lots of women in menopause, perimenopause, all the way through menopause find it really, really hard to either fall asleep or to stay asleep. An Epsom salt bath before bedtime the magnesium absorbs into your skin, and that can be really good for supporting sleep. So I just wanted to add that on as well, but don't add anything, no scents. I totally agree with that. So even things like air fresheners, heavily scented, like washing powders or anything like that, just get scents out of your house. And these plug-in things, just don't have them. In terms of nutrition, Livy also mentioned the cruciferous vegetables, so your broccoli, your cauliflower, also things like onions, garlic, things like that. You've also got what are called phytoestrogens. So these are foods that contain naturally occurring estrogens, plant-based estrogens. So these can help to support your body to find balance, because your body in menopause, the hormones are kind of going all over the place, but your body is all the time trying to find a balance. It just wants everything to be easy. Your body's basically quite lazy. It wants your body to be completely nice and equilibrium. So that's what it's always trying to do. So phytoestrogens can be really helpful, and you'll find these in things like lentils, pulses, things like that. Also, we've been told for decades now that we shouldn't be eating fat. But actually, good fats are absolutely essential for supporting your endocrine balance. So things like certainly avocados, nuts, seeds, coconut, any of these kind of things, are good fats. What you need to be avoiding is a lot of saturated fats, like saturated animal fats. But the main things to avoid actually are what are called trans fats. Trans fats are the fats that are chemically produced, and their structure is really bad for our bodies. So we need to be avoiding these trans fats. And that is things, obviously your junk food, anything like, fast foods, anything like that. Also cakes, biscuits, stuff like that. They often have trans fats added, unless you make your own. Obviously, if you want to do your own baking, that's fab. But yeah, so there's a lot of misinformation about fats, and also sugar. We're on this blood sugar roller coaster all the time, because the way we eat and the stuff that we eat tends to make our blood sugar go like that. So it's up and down all day, and what we're trying to get more of is more of a level playing field. So it's about getting sugars out of your diet as much as you can. And having a plant-based diet, finding sugars in things like dates are really good. Dates are really good for sweetening cakes, sweetening breakfast cereals, dates on your porridge or whatever. So there's lots of places you can find healthy sugars, but trying to get the processed sugar out of your diet as well.
My sister's listening to this, Alison, and she's sitting screaming yes, because she's been telling me, you have too many false sugars, half your problem, and now you've just validated her. Thanks for that, Alison. But all joking aside, there's such... The thing is as well, I don't know if it's your experience, so I'm not saying that it's not, but sometimes you just go and it's like, let's just alleviate the symptoms with a chemical. Let's just go straight to, like myself, it's like every time the PMDD gets right on top of me, it's like, right, let's get sertraline, let's get this on, let's get that. And I'm not saying there isn't a necessity for alleviating, especially the extreme circumstances. And it's took me years to realise that my life isn't falling apart every month, that actually I'm going through this hormonal cycle, that regardless to how good my life would be, I would still feel like this for 3 to 4 days. And I make light of it, but sometimes I don't go on my page, or I have to rearrange my work because I can't communicate, because I'm so uptight, or I'm so upset, and I feel like people are talking about me. It's like proper, no wonder people were locked up for it. You know, I have been assessed for things that probably were never the problem. I was more probably doing that sort of stuff. Now, obviously juice is the hardest thing for me. So Stephanie's obviously aware that she drinks too much sugar, but she's saying that juice is the hardest thing. Does anybody have an alternative apart from I hate bland water. I tend to put lemon in it overnight with a wee bit of ginger, and that keeps the water fresh, and as long as it's super cold. So do you have any kind of nice juice alternatives that are not? I'll take to you first, Kerry, because we've heard from you, and then I'll go to Livy and Alison again. So do you have any alternatives, or do you just like water?
Well, my mum never ever gave us strong juice. It was just water with a bit of colouring in it. So we never got cans of fizzy pop or anything like that as children. It was a treat if we got a glass. And I can remember going to a friend's house, and she still laughs at me when she gave me a can of Coca-Cola, and I said, I can have this whole can to myself. I don't have to share it. And she thought this was hilarious, but I had never been given a can of juice. And I must have been about 14 or 15. And so I've been brought up, I went through a phase of maybe between 15 and 20 drinking a lot of fizzy juice, and then I drink water and very, very light diluting. My son's got one of those Air-Ups, and he thinks it's the best thing ever. I'm not entirely sure, but he thinks it's wonderful. So Air-Up, it makes the water smell.
Right, amazing. I've never even heard that. I'll need to get more on that. Livy, what about yourself? Have you got any alternatives, just plain water to take away from the juice?
I think, unpopular opinion maybe, but everything in moderation. I wouldn't deprive yourself of juice if that's what you really enjoy. Obviously, just don't drink 8 cans of it a day. I wouldn't if you're enjoying a can of it a day, that's absolutely fine. But alternatives, I like to get creative with fruit and water, like you were saying, like lemon and ginger, cucumber, strawberries, leaving it overnight. It tastes lovely the next day. I'm the same, can't drink water, think it tastes horrible. I have a wee bit of diluting juice in my water. I try and go for the stuff that's not got added sugar in it, so stuff that's just naturally flavoured. It is an acquired taste, I'm not going to pretend that it's the same as fizzy juice, because it's absolutely not. But even sparkling water and a wee bit of lime cordial or blackcurrant cordial, you can almost trick yourself. The other thing I like to do that maybe is quite gross, I'm not sure, I like tea that's cooled down. So herbal teas that are quite fruity, that's cooled down, and drinking them out of a water bottle. So you're getting your water intake up, but it's quite flavourful as well.
Yeah.
So, Alison, have you got any suggestions, or we kind of covered it?
I would agree with Livy, actually. I think that if you want a can of juice, sometimes there's nothing wrong with that. And I will totally admit to having a Pepsi Max a couple of times a week, But if I'm out somewhere and I want a soft drink with a meal or whatever, there's nothing wrong with having what you want, but just not all the time. In terms of the stuff that I drink, if I want a really refreshing sort of evening-y type drink, I'll have a soda water with a little bit of elderflower cordial and some chopped apple through it. That's really nice.
That sounds good.
Things like the lemon and ginger is really good. Cucumber, a handful of frozen berries in your glass of water is really good. And the other thing that I do is, I find water actually makes me feel sick. But when I'm exercising, I need to be hydrated. So if I've just got plain water, I'll not drink it. So I use these hydration tablets. You can get little hydration tablets, and they've got electrolytes in. And if I dissolve one of those in my water, it gives it a little tiny bit of flavour, but it really seems to make it a lot more easy on my tummy. So these are the kind of things that I do.
Amazing. I'm the same as Livy. I like the cucumber, lemon and ginger, but I'm also bad for that. And my sister's in the comments going, Pepsi Max is the worst. I am brew. And you're like, yeah, we know. We said it was. But we're almost reaching our time. Believe it or not, we've nearly chatted our whole time away. But I didn't mention, and you didn't mention, Alison, which I'd like to mention, that your group, although you're just getting your socials back up now, is Change Ahead. Livy's is bloody amazing, and it's on Facebook and other handles. We will put them all up in the comments. If you come back to look at the comments, we'll get them all up for you. We've also got the wonderful Kerry with TCS Eco Sanitary Wear that she basically, I actually remember you making your son's nappies, because I was always wondering, I wonder if that's where it came from. But the purpose of the show today, and I'm just going to let the girls say their last wee thing about where they actually are going or where you can go to see them and stuff. I think every single one of them, I don't know about anybody in the audience, but I've certainly learned something, more than one thing off each of them. Very knowledgeable girls. I don't like to say women and I don't like to say ladies, so I like to say girls, as long as you're all right with that. But I've learnt something new for every single one, especially the chemical thing off Kerry, like pulling things out. I'll definitely be in touch for your sort of things, and you're very knowledgeable. The unfortunate thing that I find here, and that's why I wanted to bring this kind of show to the platform, was I had spoke to various people, even about it. Thanks very much, Stephanie. So Stephanie said it's been amazing to inform us. I hadn't heard about you guys, and I think that is very unfortunate. Apart from Kerry, but again, I know Kerry, we've been on each other's Facebooks. I do know Kerry. Would I have known about her stuff if I hadn't known her personally? I don't know. And I think it's very important that especially Scottish based and beyond, gets to know who Bloody Amazing is and who they promote and what they do and how they help people and where they go. Alison, yourself, the knowledge you've got as well, and Kerry, yourself, it's important that we do realise that, yes, we want equal jobs and we want equal this, but we are women. We do have hormones, and some of us are really debilitated to the stage that affects our jobs. Some of us have to go the extreme and get hysterectomies. Some of us even, there's a big statistic on marriage breakups when someone's going through the menopause because of how much their personality change. It's massive impact. So Kerry, is there anything you want to add before we wrap up?
Well, one of the things is that my business is actually on the procurement framework for Scottish schools. So if you as a person are interested in them, you need to get in and actually start saying that you're wanting to use reusables, and this brand, it's on procurement that we can use. You can actually get a hold of us there. My website, obviously. I'm hoping to be working with Livy a little bit more, because I'm really impressed with the fact that the focus of Bloody Amazing is actually educating in reusables, which currently just isn't happening, and that's a massive problem, because there is, small micro businesses like myself all over Scotland making high quality reusables, and they're not getting out there because there's just the mass produced stuff that's available, and it's simply not as good a quality.
It's definitely not the landfill as well. It's not really good for anything. I'm definitely going to get them now, especially when you said about what it was doing. You know what I mean? Very much. Livy, do you want a wee short just to kind of wrap up anything and before we head off, darling?
I think what you were saying about symptoms being really debilitating, that's something we've not really touched on because we were talking so much about hormones and what helps. But one of our huge things we're looking at, our values, is connection. So periods and menopause impact 51% of the world's population, but we don't talk about it enough. Things are changing, things are getting more positive, but people are still ashamed. Like, I still hear from girls who put a tampon up their sleeve to go to the toilet because they're so ashamed that somebody will know they're on their period. Some gynecologists estimate that 80% of people in the world have a hormone imbalance. That's a lot of people. But in Scotland, we spent 2.1% of our healthcare budget on women's problems in 2018, and that's only going to get worse with current spending. I don't have PMDD, but I have PME, which is similar. It's premenstrual exasperation, and that's when existing issues get worse during the time where you're losing your hormones. So, I totally get it, and I see how impacted people are, and that's something we try and do, is share people's stories. So we have videos of people talking about their endometriosis, people talking about their PMDD and how it impacts them, and I just want to see much more of this happening, because we need to get this not taboo anymore. People need to be talking about it and shouting about it from the hills, and people need to stop being so embarrassed and so ashamed. But I understand it's a huge barrier. But yeah, that's kind of all I want to say, and just thanks for having us.
No, very much. Honestly, and before I could go to Alison, exactly what you just said there. This isn't embarrassing. This is real life. This happens to every woman, and it might not be extreme to some. It's just like the breastfeeding thing. It's a natural thing, but we're not allowed. Some people be embarrassed to breastfeed. Why? Why should anybody be offended by a woman breastfeed? There's so many things that, we want to kind of inclusive, or we go, women things, or back in the day it was down there, or, oh, she's gone through the thing way, and it was all whispers, and it's to bring it all to the forefront. Before I go to Alison, I will reiterate, please message me if you miss the handles for any of the contacts for Kerry's EcoPads, for Livy's page, for what I can get off Alison. I do have the girls' numbers, and I will pass on anything if anybody wants to get in touch with these ladies and get some advice, some products, or even just support the page would be absolutely brilliant. It'll get people talking about it more. And Alison, is there anything you want to add just before we finish up?
Something that I'm quite passionate about is the equality issues around menopause. That women are, they're so impacted by menopause, but yet they don't know what questions to ask. They don't know what to say. They do feel embarrassed about it. But it's an equality issue. They shouldn't be experiencing this on their own. So for me, it's about actually having proper adult grown-up conversations about it in the right places, getting the information out there so that women know what's happening, they know where to turn. And also, menopause really starts when you start your periods in puberty. That's when your experience of menopause begins. So it's worth going into schools and talking about menopause with these 11 to 14-year-olds that Livy mentioned, because everything you do to your body in terms of your reproductive cycle, the stuff that you put in your body, whether it's drugs, whether it's hormones, whether it's things that you rub on your skin, all of that, by the time you get to 35, 40, and you're starting to get into perimenopause, all of that then comes to the fore. So it's actually about how do we treat our bodies all the way through our lives as women. And if we can get that right, then, it really annoys me that women go through menopause, they feel ill, they become less active because they feel they don't feel well, they lose confidence in their bodies. But if we give the right education, the right support, then menopause can actually be a fantastic time of freedom and, release from having to be a certain thing. And we can then go into our older age, awesome. That's what we want to be, strong and fit and healthy and joyful. And, that's really what I'm passionate about, I suppose. And that's where I think, my business will probably try and go in that direction in some way. But I'm just one wee person, so need a lot more.
One wee person with absolute massive knowledge of these. I just want to tell you a comment. I thought I was having a nervous breakdown, very sappy, not like me, too embarrassed to go to the GP finally, and I'm on HRT patches but still have debilitating symptoms. Great talk, ladies. So it's been a thing as someone else is asking to get the show from the beginning so they can pass it on to people. Other people are saying thank you so much. It's been an amazing chat. So many good comments have come in, and it's and there's one of my supporters as well who's male said women need a better support network for this issue. People need to be aware this has a massive impact on you, and people need to be much more understanding of the issues. That's one of our male audience that's came and said that. So I will 100% pass anything on to you that I get. This show could go on for another hour and a half because I know there's so much more knowledge that you have actually got. I know you have not touched on half the stuff that we may have, but you have certainly learnt me a thing or two. As you've got all positive things. This will go out on my platform, which will just keep growing viewers from then. And anything at all, if you are happy with it, if I get anybody that wants to come drive over, I'll put them over, certainly to the Bloody Amazing page. Please send me email. I will. My sister's giving me demands in the comments. I'll speak to you after it. But I would just like to honestly, heartfelt thank the three of you for coming along and basically sharing a little, small, minute of the knowledge and support and the stuff that you do for our women and young people going through these things and making it more normalised, because that's the problem here. We all go through it. I can't believe this is a great lady said about symptoms with patches about this time was happening. Well done. So it's massive good, honestly inspiring. I have more knowledge from what I had in this chat. Thank you. So basically saying they've got more knowledge from this show, you know, so it has been really inspirational, and I'd love to keep going, but keeping the time tight. But everybody, the feedback's been absolutely amazing. I honestly can't thank you enough. So thank you very much, the three of you, coming on and sharing a wee bit of your knowledge. And with that, that is Declutter Talk Show, talking all things hormonal beyond. And thank you so much for everyone that tuned in. Again, if you want any stuff, we will get it in the comments, message the page. Thank you again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.